Curse builds. These are actually a unique style of builds, and cursed builds is typically a term used by speedrunners. Cursed builds are essentially builds that you look at and go, what the hell? That shouldn't work, but they do. Typically though, they only really work in one or two very, very unique and niche circumstances, and the moment you take them out of that circumstance, they are garbage. They are pretty terrible in terms of general play, especially in solo play. Curse builds are pretty much nothing unless they've got someone to enact essentially their curse upon. A good example of this is actually the build that I am using here. And before we go any further, massive shout out to Jabba. He has never done a two-man legendary before, and I've thrown him straight in the deep end and went, yeah mate, I'm going to be a support, despite the fact that I'm nearly 9k in SHD, and you've only just hit over 1k and just got your first build fully optimized. You're now going to do a legendary carry in 2-player. Have fun. So yeah, shout out to Jabba for this. He did very well, and it also just kind of highlights why curse builds can be a good thing, but also a horrible, horrible, horrible thing. Now, the curse build that I'm actually running here is a buff healer with a bit of skill. The idea of this build is for me to just hide behind the front line, hide behind the team, and just buff them and essentially AFK. There are many, many examples of cursed builds. This is just one. I am running 4-piece Future Initiative with skill damage. I'm relying purely on the set for the healing. Blue screen for a bit of CC. Ferocious Calm for perfect Overwatch. The only reason I'm using perfect Overwatch over normal Overwatch is simply due to the decrease in time amount. And then Memento. Although I'm not relying on the kill confirm stacks from Memento, it is purely there because red core, blue core, yellow core. I am also using Technician to put me at skill tier 6. I've been very lucky and I got a Ferocious Calm with skill damage, skill haste, and then all mods themselves are also skill haste. The majority of your damage for this build will come from your turret. It hits a lot harder than you do with your weapons. You're utilizing the Future Initiative to heal yourself as well as allies, also providing them with a 15% total weapon damage buff when they are at full armor. And as long as you stay your dumbass in cover, you are also providing them with another 12% total weapon and skill damage from perfect Overwatch. With Future Initiative and Overwatch combined, that is a total of 27%. The unique thing about this though is if your friend or teammates lose a bit of armor, they don't lose their full buff. As long as you're still in cover, they still retain at least 12% from Overwatch. Or if you get out of cover, as long as they're at full armor, they retain 15% total weapon and skill damage. It is essentially a surefire way to maintain at least some form of damage buff 100% of the time, especially as if you are just sitting and staying in cover, not peeking, not doing anything too drastic, and hopefully not getting shock-naded. We are relying completely and utterly on the Future Initiative healing side of things, the skill repair provided by the 4-piece skill set for our healing. And for this, I would recommend using the Chem rather than the Hive, simply just due to the fact of the Chem does a huge burst in ally skill repair, and where you're staying back a bit more, you're able to just sit in your own Chem puddle to heal yourself rather than having to be too drastic in any way, shape or form. Although I am using a turret, it is not really required. You can swap to varying things. There are certain points throughout this legendary mission that I do swap to Jammer Pulse or Sticky EMP and a few other things depending on what the room may or may not require. Turret is just kind of a handy skill in a lot of situations. However, like I said, feel free to switch it out. This isn't really so much of a build video. This is just kind of to show This build, technically, it doesn't really make a lot of sense, yet it does actually work. I'm providing a good buff to my teammates. I'm able to sustain myself, although I don't do the largest amount of damage. I'm able to act in varying different ways, in some forms of DPS, some forms as a healer, some forms as a buff or support, and as a little bit of a skill build for a distraction, depending on how you want to play. As long as I don't go full frontal and think that I am some crazy DPS that can output a good amount of damage or try tanking, the build works mostly fine. It's very niche. It's one of the few builds that I am quite comfortable in with Legendary, as you can potentially tell, I hope, maybe. However, soloing a Legendary with this build is not going to happen. It is very much a team-oriented thing. Playing solo, even in the open world, like, it honestly struggles on hard by itself. It has no individual or direct damage. In fact, if you tally up the amount of damage that you give other players, it actually outperforms the damage that you do individually on the end of the stat screen, which is quite impressive. Maybe not particularly with this run, because Jabber is learning. Jabber is doing very well. He's never really done anything of this sort before. He's probably one of our newest, if not is our newest clan member, and he is doing pretty damn well and figuring things out for himself. He is only SHT 1200, and he's essentially, although with a little bit of support, he is acting as the main DPS in a two-man Legendary. He's effectively kind of soloing this Legendary, and he performs very, very well. I expect to see his solo clear time very soon. Anyway, back to curse builds. Like I said, they are very unique. They typically only fit one or two very specific purposes, and to take them out of that purpose is pretty much a death sentence. For example, the part that you're seeing now should actually be a death sentence. The only thing that is actually keeping me alive is the fact that this curse build actually works as a healer, so I'm able to heal myself. It also kind of works as a CC through use of blue screen, so I'm able to CC enemies, which allows my turret to do some form of work. It is not the best healer, it is not the best damage dealer, it's not the best skill build. What it does excel at, though, is providing a buff to my teams under varying different circumstances, and is able to maintain that buff. I have the chem to ensure that my team is able to maintain the use of future initiative, and I also utilize the turret or varying other skills that I'm able to utilize, and in tandem with blue screen I'm able to ensure that I'm able to stay in cover for as long as I need to provide both buffs, both future initiative and Overwatch. Again, the only reason I'm using perfect Overwatch on Ferocious Calm is because it has a quicker build up. It's 10 seconds rather than 12. This might not seem like a big deal, but when you're trying to ensure that you buff your teammates, those extra 2 seconds can actually make a pretty big difference. Jabber is using the standard Strikers build with a Obliterate Grupo chest and Coyote's Mask, with a FAMAS with, I believe, fast hands, and he was able to hit 1.6 mil a shot at varying different points, whereas average would be about 1.3, 1.4, so it does make a considerable-ish difference. Other variations of curse builds, weirdly, a lot of them actually incorporate True Patriot. Some of them are some weird CC styled builds, and there are a few which rely on tip of the spear along with utilizing the crossbow, because crossbow is silly powerful, like very silly powerful. This here is another example of a curse build. We have 4-piece hardwired, which allows us to basically spam our skills We're also using a China Light backpack with Energize and Everyday Carrier. If we're lucky, we can get one as shown with Perfectly Efficient. We mainly use Busy Little Bee and we build up stacks utilising Busy Little Bee, and then when needed we swap to Mechanical Animal, get the kill, which will provide us with an overcharge. With that we can throw out Seeker Mines, because we're going to be spamming Seeker Mines to keep things moving and clear, and then we also use the Scanner Pulse for an overcharge Scanner Pulse, which provides everyone with 20% total weapon damage to pulsed targets. After that overcharge is done, we are then able to use an armor kit. Along with using the Survivalist, this allows us to heal allies, but using the armor kit with Perfectly Efficient has a 75% chance not to consume it. Plus Energize, this means that we are able to grant another overcharge. This again allows us to throw out more Seeker Mines and provide another overcharge Scanner Pulse. You guessed it, this is literally pulse enemies and throw Seeker Mines on repeat, with 2 options to overcharge. If you can, Mechanical Animal is going to be the way you go. However, if needed, you can utilise an armor kit. Although you have a 75% chance not to consume one, armor kits are in shorter supply than ammo. So yeah. Another one is this. This looks like a complete mess considering it's all status effect and skill haste. There is a bit of skill damage on the chest. This is actually a drone turret build. Again, we're going to be utilising Busy Little Bee for building up stacks so that we can defend ourselves when the time comes. We can either use stage left or lefty for dealing with anything rushing us. However, what this is for is using Perfect Sledgehammer along with Survivalist and Acosta's Go Bag with Mad Bomber on the chest. We are literally there to provide Sledgehammer to as many things as possible. Acosta's Go Bag every 60 seconds will allow us to overcharge, giving us a huge buff to our turret and drone. Our turret and drone will also get another 25% from the rigger set when we tell them to interact or target or deploy them, etc, etc. But the overall idea is just provide Sledgehammer and overcharge your skills. You do not necessarily need to go with turret and drone. There are a variety, a myriad even, of different ways you can play this. The only thing that is really required would be stage left for Perfect Sledgehammer or some form of Perfect Sledgehammer, Acosta's Go Bag and Survivalist. The reason we want status effects is, I'm not sure if people have noticed, but if you burn things with the grenade from Survivalist, it constantly refreshes the tick duration on Sledgehammer. So you want status effect on there to keep that burn going for as long as possible so that they have Sledgehammer on them for as long as possible. That's literally all that build does. Provide Sledgehammer. It's got a little bit of skillness in there just so that you are of use to the team, but the main purpose is Sledgehammer. Then we have the Chunga Breaker. This is quite a unique one. We have 4-piece tip of the spear utilising the backpack. Again, Survivalist, simply because the crossbow is OP. Well, I say OP, it's very good and handy at breaking Chungas. We need to be generating as much crossbow ammo as regularly as possible, so the tip of the spear backpack is required. We have Fox's Prayer knee pads for the skill tier, as well as the skill damage on them. This is going to be interesting. However, the only reason Fox's is there is simply due to the fact of damage to targets out of cover. We're again going to be going with turret and drone with capacitor. We do actually have some skill damage on this. Another weird trick with this is after you throw a grenade for Survivalist for the burn, swap to your pistol to get normal Sledgehammer, then swap to your Mechanical Animal to get an overcharge on your turret and drone to help provide more damage, and then swap to capacitor to give yourself another 60%. When the Chunga comes out, you pull out the old crossbow and you just shoot them. Just shoot the Chunga. That's it. That's all you're there for. You just shoot the Chunga. Also works quite well on Warhounds, ironically. But these are just some weird examples of curse builds. Individually, by themselves, they are useless. You are not going to do anything. However, they can be of benefit to the team, simply because you are dealing with a very niche and weird circumstance, and you're able to deal with those circumstances very quickly and efficiently. The issue with these are, and I'm hoping it's just been shown by me running this through with Jabba, because he's not that experienced with someone running this style of build of where you're very niche, he has a lot more slack to pick up. He now essentially has 2 players worth of DPS that he needs to provide, and in this situation specifically, I'm only giving him 27% total weapon damage. Although I can mostly look after myself through healing and utilization of a turret, I'm not exactly pro player material, along with there's only so much me and my weird wacky build can do by itself. This is the downside of curse builds. I need him a lot more than he needs me. For example, the tip of the spear Chunga Cracker. After those Chungas are dead, my tip of the spear build is mostly useless, when if I was running a headhunting TAC 50 build, I would still be of most use. I can deal with things, I can one-shot them, I can help clear ads. Aside from Chungas, that build is mostly useless. It can work, it's the reason we've gone for skill tier and utilising varying different skills, but for general play and in under general circumstances, curse builds are mostly meh at best. A good way to show this is if you just keep an eye on Jabba. Really, my build is not a DPS, it's not a CC, it's a buffing support build, and we have a legendary boss we now need to deal with. This is not something that is easily done when someone is effectively, now I am dead weight. All I'm really doing is providing him with a little bit more damage, so all of the boss damage relies on him. The only thing I'm able to do is, now that I've actually destroyed my turret, is I'm able to put on a decoy so that Jabba is able to get behind and actually do some damage. First of all, I need to put a shock trap out so I can try and keep this guy busy, so I'm actually able to go and revive him so Jabba can go do some damage. But generally speaking, I'm useless here now. I'm doing nothing. I am a complete dead weight. I require the Darwin Award. So as useful as curse builds can be, they're also a heavy detriment to your team. It's kind of the reason they're called curse builds. Sure, they excel at one thing, and they do that one thing really well, but the moment I'm unable to do that one thing, it's not going to go well. It's just not. Such as the Chunga Cracker build. Again, what's that going to do against this boss? The Sledgehammer build could be of use, potentially provide Sledgehammer so that you're able to deal more damage to this boss. But again, in terms of damage, I'm not going to be able to do much. I'm still relying completely and utterly on Jabba here to do what is needed, and it's not going well. Now, the main reason I actually bring all these up, because I've been trawling YouTube a lot lately in between farming Golden Bullet and playing a lot of Warhammer 40k Dark Tide for the Emperor, is a lot of the builds I'm seeing put out lately are straight up curse builds. Like, they excel at one thing, but it's almost like the person publicizing them doesn't actually know what a curse build is, or how to utilize a curse build, or what their curse build they've even built actually bloody does. And then I started matchmaking with randoms again, and oh my god, the amount of curse builds that are going around with people thinking they're actually well-rounded good builds. No, they're curse builds. They excel at doing one tiny little thing, and that is it. So, have a look at your build, see what it actually does, see how it performs. Because if it's not performing how you think it should, it's a curse build. Again, huge shout out to Jabba for this one. I've tortured him for like 45 minutes for his first duo clear with him doing the majority of the work. I feel that's actually very impressive. That's a good amount of kills and a good amount of damage. Have fun, good luck, don't die. It's bad for the health.